Hello. I don't know. Do I move this? Is this fine? You guys can hear me, right? So I just thought I'd start by telling a little bit about myself. I have had quite a few interns from Cal State Long Beach and worked with Cal State Long Beach students along the way over the course of my, career. I've been doing this for about 23 years now, so I really want to talk to you guys about your journey because the industry is not what it used to be. So you all might have questions about what does it look like with all the changes in technology, with the economy and things like that. But I also want to share a little bit about myself so you can see that it really doesn't matter where you come from, your background, your experience. It's really the work that you put into your future. And at the end of the day, you all make your own way. So I just want to kind of like set the expectation out there that you all are capable of owning your own company if that's what you really want to do. So I'm going to take you through the steps that I took to get here and really just share a little bit about me. So I will say that a lot of people that don't know my history see me now and think that I must come from money or I must have great connections, and they make a lot of assumptions about my ethnicity. But I kind of want to talk a little bit about that because it's amazing how people can judge you where you are at a given moment, but not see what it took for you to get there. So myself, I'm Armenian and I'm also Italian. I didn't really know my Italian family growing up, but to give you a little history, my mom is what they call a detention baby. She was born in a work camp in Germany in the 1940s. So her family escaped the Armenian genocide. And when they came to the US in the 40s and 50s, not many were welcoming of Middle Easterners back then. So growing up, I didn't really get to know my Italian side because they were racist and they weren't acceptant of my mom and us, actually. So it was just a little bit of an early understanding of how different I was when I first started out. So I also want to talk about kind of a little bit of that background. So growing up in that detention camp, my mom's father was not the best kind of a person. So growing up, a lot of my mom's side of the family was made up of a lot of criminals. So they stole and did things that were not great to get to where they are. And there was a lot of abuse that was common in the Middle Eastern side of my family. And the abuse was not just verbal or physical, but it was also sexual. And it was really common in that side of my family. So growing up, I was pretty much exposed to all of that. In my own immediate family, there was a lot of physical abuse, verbal abuse, sexual abuse. And so it kind of felt like I was already out of options before I even, could get to a certain age. So I really didn't think that I was going to amount to anything when I was young. According to my family, I wasn't very smart. I was never going to be successful. I was too stupid. I wouldn't be able to go to college. We were also very poor growing up. So we were homeless a lot, lived with family. So I would lose everything constantly. And we would move so much, it was hard to gain friendships. And I also grew up in the 80s. So there was no texting. There was no social media to stay connected. The second I moved, I lost all the people that I was connected to. So it was really hard to kind of gain, a foundation to where I felt confident in myself. And so early on, I really just didn't know what I wanted, but I just remember being so enamored with architecture really young. And that was just something that I just remember loving architecture. By the time I got to high school, I basically was forgotten. So my parents would forget to pick me up from school. A lot of times there wasn't food on the table. They would forget to pretty much take me to all the things. And so by the time I was 16, I will be honest and say I really just didn't want to live anymore. I was badly bullied in school because I grew up in such poverty. And then I would come home to the same verbal and physical abuse that I was experiencing in school. And I hit a point where I just thought I'm too stupid to amount to anything. I never actually would consider killing myself. I just didn't want to be on the earth at that point in time. And so really for me, and you all have your own past, but for me, God has always been my foundation. And He put people in my lives that year that kind of gave me courage to fight for my life And I just significantly remember at the age of 16 deciding that I was going to fight for my future. I wasn't going to be homeless anymore. I was always going to make sure I had food on the table for myself. And I basically had no internet to search this, but I started looking and asking around, and I found out about Cal State Long Beach. And I applied to get in, and I was able to get full financial aid. So I started attending Cal State Long Beach in 2001. And when I started going, my whole family said that I wasn't going to be able to do it. They said that I was definitely too stupid, lazy, and that I would not amount to anything. So I knew that with everything that I had going on, I would have to work full time because I was also supporting my parents at the time. So I decided that I was just going to do it. So I worked full time. My very first job was Kinko's, back before they called it FedEx Office. And I worked there and would often show up to school in my uniform. And Jeff remembers I would show up to model building still in my uniform. And I was just really determined not to prove my family wrong, but just to make sure that I could take care of myself, feed myself, have a roof over my head, and buy the things that I needed. I never really set out to start my own company. I just set out to make a difference in my life and anyone else that I came across, because I didn't want anyone to go through what I had gone through. And I wanted to show others that your circumstances don't need to determine your future, that your choices and the work that you put in can really pave the way for what your future is. So I say all that not because I want any of you to feel sorry for me or anything like that, but I think more often so much is said about where you come from and how it makes it impossible to rise above. But really rising above is down to the effort that you want to put into it. If you want to start a company, you can start a company even though you're a kid that's homeless, because that was me. If you want to start a nonprofit, you can start a nonprofit. It's really just what work are you going to put into it? What effort are you going to put into building up yourself? And how are you going to take the steps to pursue it? So I really understood at that point in time that community was just a big part of why I was able to get out of where I was. And so I really just appreciated all the friends that their parents stepped in to help me and things like that. So I graduated from here, and when I did, I had been working at Kinko's the entire time. I did start working at a small firm while I was still attending Cal State Long Beach, and it was very awkward. It was basically myself and one person. I worked out of his house, I never left, and I learned some things, but for the most part, I just understood that I was learning more in school than working for him. And at that time, there was a professor here that worked at Interior Architects, and he suggested that I apply for the internship at Interior Architects. And for those that don't know, Interior Architects is a worldwide interior architecture firm in the commercial industry, and I couldn't even imagine not knowing anyone that had worked in anything close to a corporate environment. I just couldn't imagine, I just felt very intimidated, underqualified. But my teacher said he thought that I had the hard work that was necessary to be successful, and I interviewed against a few of my classmates and got the job. Now, of course, I was still going to school here, and I wasn't making ends meet between those two jobs because I was still working at Kinko's. Now I was interning at IA. And so then I decided to start my own small company. So this is the first step I took into owning a business. And I started a photography business. And I would shoot weddings, family shots, things like that on the side. And I did that for the times when I had to unexpectedly pay rent for my family or pay a bill that I wasn't prepared for. And that was really what I leaned on to help me get through college. Now, towards the end of my time here, my dad decided to take off and leave all the bills to me. So I ended up getting actually really sick my senior year of college. So I know you all are going through your thesis right now, and during thesis I was working about 60 hours a week and trying to pay my family's bills, and it just all got to me, and I basically ended up in the hospital. So all the teachers really rallied around me because it was not that, it was pretty much in April when that happened, and they're like, you're just so close. So they all supported me, made exceptions for me because back then everything was in person, technology was not what it is today. And so they basically rallied around me, and even though I was in and out of the hospital, I was able to share my thesis on senior night, which I felt really proud of, because with everything going on, I had every reason to quit, but I was so determined because I had come so far. So I was able to graduate, and not only did I graduate, my teachers all suggested that I apply for scholarships, and I'm like, how am I going to do all this? But I ended up getting several, and one insignificant that I think was a game changer for me was I got the IIDA Senior Designer of the Year award, and back then they gave it to one individual, and that money went to all of my hospital bills at the time because I didn't have insurance. And so I just saw that other people saw things in me that I didn't see in myself, and I realized that I needed to take advantage of every opportunity that I had. So what I want to go over is why that's important, because you all are going to graduate, and there are not that many opportunities when you graduate. You're competing against people that are graduating with you, people that graduated before you. All the people that are competing against have changed because now we have more technology. So what people are hiring for now is not what they hired for back when I graduated. So I kind of want to talk about that a little bit. But first I will kind of go over some of my experience. So I'm going to skip over this one a little bit. So I did a project for Bunim Murray with interior architects, and when I was working for interior architects, I kind of explained what working for one person was like, and I just realized that wasn't for me. That's not the experience I wanted. I knew that when I got to interior architects that I wanted to start a nonprofit. That's all I had desired. And so I thought, I want to work for a firm that's going to teach me enough so that I could start a nonprofit and maybe help others with the skills that I was learning. So at IA, I did interiors, but it also taught me exteriors, which is not something that we learn necessarily coming out of here. And I went on to run our Amazon account. So I'm going to skip over that. So over the course of my time at Interior Architects, I was there for 10 years. I would work on average 80 to 100 hours a week once I graduated. Running Amazon and projects that are this scale, it's really challenging because some of the projects I had were 500,000 square feet, some were 2 million square feet, and it's a lot of information to try to maintain at one time. And it's not necessarily the company that's working me that much, it's just the things that you're dealing with. It's hard to always pack that into a 40-hour day. And when I was doing this, I didn't see it as that much of a negative because I was learning so much. Like, where and when am I going to learn from the best people in the country about how to build a ground-up building, interiors, and I was learning how to run an Amazon project. So on top of everything else, I thought the clients and the relationships that I was building there were great until I started noticing that they were hiring in people below me for more money than I was making. And the only reason why I noticed that is because I was a project manager having to do staffing, and I saw what their billable rate was compared to mine. And I realized maybe I've reached my max. And at that time, I was working in the downtown LA office, and that office made everyone feel like a number. They said that we're all replaceable, they're so competitive, there was no diversity, they didn't care about diversity. They said that they did, but at that time, they were just looking for the top architect and the top designer. It wasn't about who you were, where you came from, they just wanted the most talent. And I mean, to their credit, that's what they needed. They're working on the top clients. So I got it. You know, hey, I need to be the best, and I need to prove that I'm the best. And so I was actually scouted by our Orange County office. And when I got to the Orange County office is actually when I started this project. So this was a 500,000 square foot ground up project in Seattle. This project went so well. So I worked on the design of the exterior with the ground. There's another architecture firm that did the actual exterior. So I designed that with them, designed all 12 floors, all 500,000 square feet. And that went so well that the Seattle office asked me to run the China and Korea division for Amazon. And so then I went from a couple projects to 8 million square feet of Amazon projects. And basically I was pulling all-nighters, I was flying and traveling, and I just hit a wall. I had been traveling a lot, and I realized I never had food in my fridge. My bills were piling because I could never get ahead. I was working too many hours to keep up, so I asked to be taken off of Amazon. And this is something that I'll talk about later, but you also have to figure out when you've reached your cap when you start working, and when have you I think, gotten to a point where you're not learning and you just are being taken advantage of. And at this point, I realized I'm just getting taken advantage of. My teams are small because they know I can run all these projects with very little people or only myself. And so then I asked to be taken off this project. They eventually let me build my own clientele at the Orange County office. And I was able to grow our office. When I got there, it was 6 people to 20 people. And at that point in time, I still didn't get a promotion or, change in title. And for no reason, they decided that they wanted me to stop working with one of my biggest clients. And that client fed us so much work. I just was really struggling with the thought of me being taken off cold turkey. And I had to understand that I don't know enough about a company that's that big to know why they were doing that. I just had to respect that that was the decision that was necessary. They wanted me to work on projects that were more complicated in higher design. And so I didn't take it personally. But what they didn't know is at that time, I was being scouted by 7 other firms that also got wind of the team I had built up. And if I'm being honest, when you get to a certain point in your career, it's not necessarily flattering because you wonder, am I going to work just as many hours when I go to that office? What's it going to be like? They weren't after me, they were after the clients that wanted to work with me. So what do they really want? So I really had to think about, do I want to go to another firm and gain the same experience, or do I want to try something new? So after I hit about my 10th year at IA, I decided to take a leap of faith and work for a company called RMD. And I had worked with RMD, they're an exhibit company that restores cars, because they created a VW bus for me for one of my clients called Ultrax. And so they offered me an opportunity to start a department at their office. And I thought, this is something new. I've learned as much as I can learn from all these other companies, but now I get to learn how to start an architecture department. Like, where else am I going to get that experience? I don't have to use any of my own money. I get to just take my clients, hopefully they come with me, and build this department. So I got there in 2016. And when I got there, that's basically what I did. I helped them with their exhibits. So we worked on Skull Candy, Go Rhino, Ford, Honda, all the big car companies. We would do all their exhibits. We would restore cars for them. We restored all kinds of different cars, and I helped with the design of those. And then I built up the architecture department. About 2 years into that, I kind of hit my breaking point again. I was basically still working 80 to 100 hours a week. And at that point, I was in my mid-30s, and you kind of get to an age where working 100 hours a week is not sustainable. And I was like, okay, what really do I want to do? And at that point in time, I was a part-time missionary, so I was going to Mexico about twice a month on the weekend, and I had a heart for working with orphans and victims of abuse because that's what I had come from. And so I was going there, and I really just wanted to have more free time to help others. I just, I'd been working enough that I just didn't want all of my time to be dedicated to work anymore. So I became part of a board for a nonprofit called Frontline Missions, and Frontline Missions is who I was going to Mexico with. And with them, we were going to boys' homes and women's shelters and orphanages. And they had an opportunity to potentially buy the land next door. And so they came to me and they were like, Christie, and this is why I'm working at RMD, could you help us just put together marketing materials? And in my brain, I'm thinking, okay, I've done this before. I could do this pretty quickly with my team. I'm working 100 hours a week. I don't know how I would fit it in if they don't help me. And at that time, we were really busy, so my team at the office wasn't able to help me, and I just thought maybe I should just start my own company. And some of my clients had already suggested it since I had gone there, and I was like, no, I just got back into my head from all the things that were told to me growing up, like, I'm too stupid, I'm not capable, I have nothing to fall back on. I had still at that point been supporting my parents financially, and I thought, how am I going to support myself and my parents and do this? But I decided to take a leap of faith, and my husband, who's back there, so I actually decided right before I met him that I was going to do this, and told him, and I think what's significant about this is what I'm going to explain when we get further on is as you find your path, you also need to find your partners and your team, because not everything is capable on your own. There are things that you're going to have to rely on people for, and that's just what I came to understand is you're going to have to know as you grow in your career who you can trust and who's going to come alongside you to get you to the next place. And at that point in time, I didn't know we would be getting married, but we ended up getting married, and he really helped me feel more confident about this. So I decided to approach my boss. And, you know, in my brain, I'd never been with a company for less than 10 years. I'd worked at Kinko's for 10 years. I'd worked at IA for 10 years. I was a really faithful employee, but when I went to them, I said that I really wanted to start a nonprofit. And they told me that they were going to sell their business. And I was like, okay, this is meant to be. Because the person that was going to buy the business had no desire for the interiors, architecture, anything. They just wanted the cars and the exhibits. And again, that kind of goes back to as you move in your career, people want your clients more than you sometimes. And so in my brain, I was like, well, would you mind if I took the department with me? And they basically said yes. So I actually took the department that I built with me as I decided to start my own company. So when you try to find your path, I think a lot of the things that you need to figure out are, what do you want to gain from your experience where you are? What's your end goal? Are you wanting to start your own firm eventually? And if you are, what kind of firm? Because there's so many different genres out there. Because that's going to make a difference in where you get your work experience. Like, I wouldn't settle, let's say, for the job that I almost settled for, which was working alongside someone who didn't have the education to teach me. I'm really thankful that I went to IA, because then I was surrounded by people that could teach me. But if I had stayed with that one person who never let me go to a job site or meet a client, I wouldn't have been able to start my own firm. So taking that leap of faith to work at IA, dealing with 100 hours, I learned faster than the average person because I was working so much, you know? I mean, imagine the average person was working 40, 50 hours, I was working 80 to 100, so I learned twice as fast as my colleagues, and I feel very thankful for it. I'm not upset. I really feel blessed by the teaching that I got, but it taught me what I did and didn't want to do. Corporate architecture and interiors is great, but it's really fast-paced and it takes a lot of time. And when I wanted to start my company, I thought I want to broaden it a little bit. I wanted to create more life quality balance, and in order to do that, I wanted to go back to the larger projects that had more longevity, like a ground-up project where I had gained that experience. So I'll tell you a little bit about us. So we were founded in 2018. I am the sole owner of the firm. I did start it before I got married. Ethan, my husband, helped me with all the paperwork, the taxes, all the business side, because I hadn't learned that. And so I had to trust him and let him take that off of my plate, because when you do start a company, you are the sole person responsible for everything. There is no boss above you. There's no one to lean on. And coming from where I came from, there's no family either. There's no one's going to pay my bills if my bills can't get paid through my company. So right away, I kind of just jumped in with the team that I had. But I made a point of incorporating the nonprofit into it. So immediately, I started the nonprofit. And when I started the nonprofit, we took on projects for free. I helped Frontline Missions build that presentation that I showed you earlier. And that was one of the first projects we did together as a team. And I took that leap of faith because I realized nonprofits can't afford 20-year experienced architects when they're trying to raise money. And it comes into my lap so often. They also get manipulated because they don't have the education to support what they're trying to do, and firms overcharge and they rip them off, if I'm being completely honest. So I really saw a gap and a need, and I thought, why don't I take my knowledge and help as many nonprofits as I can? So we started doing about 10 to 30% of our work pro bono for other nonprofits. Now, there's a little bit about who we are. Just some pictures. I have a puppy. He's our chief bark officer, Kobe. I named him after Kobe Bryant. Community and the team is really important, because when I started the firm, it was just myself and the team I had built at that company. But 2 years later, 3 of my former IAT members decided they wanted to join me. And what's significant about that is I had built up such a strong partnership with these individuals that they were able to, well, not able, they were willing to leave, I would say, security and a steady paycheck to take a chance with me. And the 3 team members that joined were all very senior. They were actually more senior than myself. And one of them in particular, Erin, she had 17 years with interior architects. But what she was experiencing during COVID was that she was working 80 to 100 hours a week, and it's just not sustainable. She wasn't seeing her kids, she wasn't sleeping. Catherine, who's to the left of that, also was experiencing the same thing. And what happened was Catherine approached me first. She decided to come, and she really wanted to do more nonprofit work and noticed that I was doing pro bono work for nonprofits. So right away she came over, and what's significant about that is she had been in the industry more than 20 years, so she brought all her clients too. So immediately we basically started to grow and double. And this is why I say relationships matter, because I didn't know what starting my own firm was going to be like, but I know that I wouldn't have, and I'm wearing the same outfit in that picture, I just noticed. I wouldn't have grown if I didn't have trusted partners. You know, my husband helping me build the company, handling all the business. Catherine and Erin, who are expensive, but you know, they brought the work to support that. My team, I've hired a lot of people from Cal State Long Beach. One of them in this picture here, Denise, I hired her as soon as she got accepted into the program when I was at the company RMD, and she's been with me for now 9 years. So a lot of these people have been working with me for a really long time. Catherine and Erin worked with me for the whole 10 years I was at IA, and I think the significance is the company isn't successful because of me. The company is successful because of the team that we've built and the individuals, and I also felt that it was important to hire people that were similar to me, that had a heart to give back, that wanted the life quality balance, and then wanted to care for the team and make sure that everyone didn't feel like a number. So community within our team has been important. Now, industry presence is something that I wanted to talk about a little bit. I've talked about starting a firm, you know, and there's a lot of different firms that you can start, and industry presence matters in this decision because, okay, let's say you want to start, you know, industrial design. There's so many like furniture designers, product designers that I work with. We started doing our own products. If you want to do residential versus commercial, it's a lot like medical. So when you think about what you want to do when you get into the next steps of your career, you shouldn't think about it as design as a whole. You should think about it as the medical field. You know, if you're a brain surgeon, you're not doing anything else. If you're OBGYN, you're not doing brain surgery. And it's the same in architecture and design. If you're designing furniture your whole life, it's going to be really hard to get into cars. If you're doing interior commercial offices, it's really hard to get into multifamily or medical. And so when I was starting to understand and how to build, I knew that I narrowed in on one type of experience, and that was retail, restaurants, corporate interiors. But I was able to bring in an architect that balanced that with ground up multifamily. And then Catherine and Erin came in with their experience. And that's really, when you're starting a company, things that you have to think about is like, how do you become a greater expert? Or how do you bring in people that you can learn from also? So when you do start working, and if you aren't about to graduate, I suggest you get an internship ASAP. Building the relationships before you graduate is really important, because graduating and then getting a job is really hard if you don't have any experience prior to that. Now, if you are graduating and you're about to graduate and don't have experience, you might need to take an internship. You might need to start at the very bottom. And it's worth it, because if you're able to get into the right company, that industry presence is what's going to get you to the next step. And the right company will give you that presence in the industry to help you build your career. Now, the presence, what's so important about it is I have not done any marketing. And we've probably done, I don't even know, hundreds and hundreds of projects in the 7 years. And I've done zero marketing. I don't have a great Instagram. Most of my projects aren't on my website, because our presence in the industry is there. And as long as people see that I'm there, they're reminded that I exist. I don't need to take them out to lunch or buy them anything. And so in the architecture world, industry presence can be something that we do in a fun way. So we'll do the IIDA fashion show, and then people from the industry see that we're there, they see that we're interacting. It could be, another fun event is a bocce ball tournament, and these all raise money, but brokers go to a bocce ball tournament. And so showing up, even though it takes time out of our working day, is important because we don't have to work as hard to get business if we just remind people that we're out there. And so that's something that's really important, that I will be honest in saying the younger generations aren't as excited about doing this kind of stuff. But this is how you build your relationships in the industry, because you don't know who you're going to meet at any one event. And you don't necessarily need to be working for a company to even have a team at some of these events. So it's all about networking and meeting people. And in this situation, you're playing bocce ball. And so you're bound to meet your competitors. We won second place last year and won money for our charity. But just really want to kind of hone in on, it's so important not just to work, but also to build relationships outside of work at these kinds of events. And as a team, we also do an event with the Boys and Girls Club for what we call We Care. So we make crafts with the kids and then give them to their families for Christmas. So that's something that we've done every year. It's something that I did every year with interior architects. So again, it's just about presence, being in the community, making sure people know that we're still out there and we're alive as a company. So that kind of leads into networking and relationship building. So how do you network and build relationships? So industrial design, interior design, architecture, there's so many organizations you all can join to meet people. And at these events that they hold, you can network and meet people that are your senior, that are at your level. They'll tell you about what jobs are open, what jobs are available. And by going to these events, you build your relationships. I've been a part of IIDA, which I know the interiors department probably knows a lot about, forever. And I mean, they are incredible. I was able to get about 20,000 worth of scholarships from IIDA just before I even graduated. And since then, I've gone on to work with IIDA. Now I'm on the board for the Orange County chapter, and I run the Emerging Leaders Group. So I basically take designers that are anywhere from 2 to 7 years, and I mentor them over the course of a year in workshops. Now, this is important because I'm building relationships with potential people that I might hire. So I'm learning a lot about who they are during this program. But with this program, I've also been able to collaborate with the heads of Gensler, SAA, Ware Malcolm, LPA, Little, and pretty much every firm that's in LA and Orange County. And we actually, which is not normal, we really collaborate, we give each other feedback, we have become partners. So this has not only built me up as a student, but now later in my career, I feel like I'm able to mentor, but then I'm also getting and gaining things back by the collaboration that I have with the people in the industry. And this is where I think finding an organization, you don't have to wait till you get a job. I would say join one now, even as you're a student. And you can join IID as a student. And I think that's so important because you'll start to meet people and learn about companies that you don't know about. There are 1 million architecture firms, there's 1 million industrial design companies, there's so many avenues, but by joining these groups, you really get to know more and it opens the doors for you to have a better opportunity. Because I would say, what's the likelihood of you getting hired by someone who's met you before versus someone who's never met you before? There's no personal relationship. And these groups allow you to form that personal relationship that might be lacking in helping you get a job right outside of college. So, project acquisition. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, okay, so I've been involved, I've been doing all these things, but how do I get my projects? And I'll just show you a couple. So I don't know if any of you have been to Collage in Costa Mesa. So basically, Bloomingdale started to give away a portion of their spaces, as shopping in a mall like that has not been as common. And Catherine, our design principal, worked on the transformation of Bloomingdale's. She designed the exterior, she named it, she designed all of the interiors. And I'm showing Catherine's project because we worked on this too. So we worked on some of the new restaurants that went in after she joined. We worked on their branding and signage. But this is where the partnership comes in. Catherine has the ability to build on her relationships and bring work into our office, which helps relieve me from the pressure of bringing in so much work. And so again, some of our project acquisition is from the course of our 20 years. It's being reliable, it's being attentive to the client, it's being responsive. It's amazing how many projects you can get just by being responsive. Sending an email back the same day you get an email. Calling someone back within 24 hours of them calling you. The responsiveness is not very common in our industry. And I think that it's something that's really lacking because there's so much social media and everyone knows we're on our phones. So why couldn't you take 5 minutes to say, hey, I'll look into this and get back to you. And a big reason why Catherine still has this project, not just because she's very talented, but because she's so responsive. This owner can call her and she gets back to him immediately. And because of that, even though we don't design every restaurant that goes into Collage, she oversees every single restaurant in every single building that he owns. So it's not just this building. And he owns quite a few. Through Catherine, we also partner. So sometimes I get a project and I hand it off to Catherine. And with Catherine, we're able to build a relationship that's allowed us to work on multiple law offices. So sometimes it's not about holding on to the relationship you have, it's also trusting others with it too. And that's how you build the relationship with each other. Now, some of these projects, you're limited on funds and we do what is to the client's taste, but this project I got from a contractor relationship. I just worked really well with the contractor. He referred me to his best friend, which is very stressful. But we delivered, we designed it to his taste, and he still continues to give us projects. So it's really, again, about the relationships. This one for financial partners, this is very progressive for who they were originally. And this one we actually competed for, and they were in a very, very traditional 1990s, 1980s building. So this was like crazy modern to them, even though I don't feel that way. But because of this project, I guess we'd call him like an operations manager that worked with me on this at Financial Partners. He's left since then. And now whenever he has a project at his new company, he calls me. And again, it was just the relationship that I built, the responsiveness, the care and attention that we took with the project. So just a couple more images. Now I am gonna share about this one. So all of that, what I'm trying to explain is just kind of builds, right? So you build these relationships and then new opportunities come. And with that, we worked with a client who then introduced us to someone else. And with that relationship, that client has then sent us about 90 acres worth of work. And 90 acres is a lot of acres to work on and to develop. And again, it's just because of the relationship we built with the client that we were given this opportunity and we didn't have to compete for it. So everything that I'm showing, I just want to, kind of carry out the relationship part. It's just so important to build that trust and the reliability. And when you build that, not just with your client, but with your bosses and the company that you work for, they will give you more responsibility to run and lead projects like this. I think another thing that I've learned too with all of this, so this is part of what we developed. It was a low-income housing in San Bernardino. And so some of this we also take to the city. So sometimes we do compete for work with the government, but it's really easy to, I would say, go under as a company when you're only competing for your projects. If you don't have a certain amount of projects coming in, whether you're designing products or buildings or whatever you're doing, and you don't have that steady income and you only rely on competition, then you don't know what people's fees are, you don't know what people are presenting, and you run a certain risk that you won't be able to pay your bills. So having a small portion of projects that you compete against and then a certain portion that you have is really important too. Now, from that relationship, we were able to do this project. So this is part of the 90 acres that we developed, and it's an outdoor event venue in San Bernardino at a state park that's owned by the city. And again, it's just, you do one project and it leads to another one, and it's all about that client relationship. Now, with that, I talked a lot about the company and I talked a lot about, all the different steps and things you need to take. But one of the things that I think is really important for you all is to figure out like, what's your end goal? Like, what's your purpose? You know, what do you want? Do you want, you know, stability and just work for a firm? And a lot of people love that. You know, some people choose to just be what we call like a drafter, you know, and they like that role and they stick with it. It's not a lot of pressure. There's no management, but there's also not a lot of growth. You kind of hit your cap. Some people prefer project management. So you got to find the opportunity to project manage. Some love design, but it's really hard to stay a designer from beginning to end. So I showed Catherine's projects because she's an example of someone who is extremely talented. And so her main focus is just design. She doesn't draft, she doesn't do our permit drawings, she does nothing but design. She builds client relationships and then produces pretty projects, and then I do her permit drawings. Now I still design, but my path was a little different. I really enjoyed putting permit drawings together. I liked managing projects. I liked designing products. So I like to stay high enough at a level where I can do a little bit of everything. And so for me, my path was more what leads to, I would say, like a principal or CEO or an owner. Now that path can be really hard because it takes you all putting in a lot of effort. You have to learn how to master every single thing in order to do that, right? So if you want to be the principal, you need to be able to put together drawings without help, design without help, manage without help. And, you know, Catherine didn't want to do any of those things. She just wanted to design. Project managers, some of them just want to project manage. They don't want to do drafting. They don't want to do anything else. And these are the things that you will find because when you all enter, you're kind of at the same level. And then when you start working, you learn what are you good at and what are you not good at, right? Maybe you're better at design. Maybe you're better at drafting. Maybe you really like project management, because it doesn't mean you leave the trade altogether. It just means you focus in on what your skills are. Now for me, I realized I wanted to be a CEO because I wanted the freedom to give back. I really struggle with people that go through anything that I went through because I know how hard it was for me to overcome it. And I wanted the freedom to help people without anyone telling me, you're spending too much time, or no, we don't have time for that. And so for me, my motivation was giving back. And so when I started 19 for Humanity, we just took small leaps of faith by helping people. We, little by little, took on projects as we could, and then eventually it allowed me to do more. So I'm going to start with what we're doing currently and then kind of take you down what we're able to do. But architecture and design services in our industry is really lacking in the nonprofit world. My cousin she lives in Altadena, and during the fires, her daughter was one of the only kids in so she had a circle of girlfriends, and her daughter and her family, their house made it, but all of my cousin's her friends in that circle, they lost their homes. So imagine being 11 years old and, you know, 10 out of 10 friends, 9 lost their homes and somehow yours survives. So it's like, okay, you know, how can I help her friends? Like, how terrible. That's overwhelming. So we started doing something small. We did Amazon wish lists for all the families and the kids. And we would take the stuff over to them because immediately you lose everything. You know, most of them left with nothing. So they just took their keys and ran out. But as we started to get to know the families, we realized they were getting taken advantage of by developers and architects, not surprising. And this family in particular came to me because they felt really overwhelmed by the process. They sent me their contractor bid. And I realized that it was extremely overpriced and it was missing things. So I knew that they wouldn't even be paying that, they would be paying so much more. So we decided, in addition to the Amazon wish list, we were just gonna design their home for free. So I sat with them, I hand sketched it, we drafted it, and I think what's hard is when you get into these positions where you're really vulnerable and you've gone through a lot of trauma, you really need someone to trust. And there aren't that many people out there that you can trust, unfortunately. You know, a lot of people are trying to take advantage of the situation, and that's what they were experiencing. So that's one project that we're working on currently. Also, being Armenian, I really wanted to encourage other Armenian kids to pursue architecture because I don't know of any Armenians that have pursued it. Being from the Middle East, we either didn't have money and you didn't pursue a career, or you came from wealth and they pushed you into law or being a doctor. So I've been speaking at schools. We've done small workshops. We're going to be doing free workshops this year, just so that, students know that anything's possible, and here are the resources to get you to that next level. I'm going to skip over that last one. Another thing that we've been doing since we started, so with Frontline Missions, we do a program called Hope in the Box. So basically, when I got a larger office, I decided to basically collect all the donations in my office. We got the architecture industry involved, and we collect probably like 300 to 400 toys a year. And we go and hand deliver them in Mexico. So I actually go to the orphanages that I've been going to for years and hand deliver them to the kids that I know. We personalize them for the kids that we know, and then make generic ones, because sometimes you don't know who's going to show up at these orphanages. And we go all over Mexico to deliver these. We wrap them in my office. It gets the whole industry together. And then I allow time for my team to wrap and participate during like work hours. But it's become a really fun event for us. Ethan and I go every year, and it's just amazing to see how something so small can help someone, without even knowing it. And I'll go into another part of that too. The other thing we started doing is free bedroom makeovers for kids in need. So we do this completely pro bono. I also counsel and mentor the kids after. And when I first met Rosalind, she had gone through extreme trauma and didn't think that she could go to college, graduate college. And I mean, I'm really proud of her. She's in her second year of college, and she's pursuing a degree in psychology because she wants to be a therapist and help kids like her. And it's just amazing how we went in not knowing them, did something so small, and by sharing my story and encouraging her, she's pursuing something greater than she thought she could. We also did a bedroom makeover for these 3 boys during COVID. They were all sleeping in different rooms. Obviously, you can see they only had 1 twin bed in there, so we did some construction, modified the room, and we built them a custom bunk bed so all 3 of them can sleep there together. We also mentored the oldest and took him on tours to show him different opportunities with different places. He wanted to pursue more of industrial design and learn the mechanics behind the scenes. And so we took him to shops, all kinds of places. And he ended up going to a trade school, and he's getting his degree right now. So really proud of what he's been doing also. But, just another example of another kid not thinking that they're smart enough or capable. This is a food pantry. So we've been working with a couple nonprofits to change food pantries into grocery stores, so that it takes away the shame of picking up a bag. And then a lot of times when they pick up these bags of food, they can't eat a lot of the items that are in it. So this allows them to go in, pick the items that are best for them in a way that feels a little bit less, I don't know what the right word is, but we just wanted it to be a better experience for them overall. Now this one is a project that we took on part pro bono and part cost. Because it was so big, we charged at cost for some of our architectural services and then did a lot of things for free. Now this last one is what I'll finish on before I open it up for questions, but I was asked to help with this project. I met this person that is on the board and works for this company 10 years prior. And I met her on a missions trip in New Jersey after Hurricane Sandy hit. We were out there rebuilding, and she asked for help. Now, this is so similar to what we went through at Frontline Missions. They had originally land out in California. Together Freedom is a nonprofit that houses teen girls that are rescued from sex trafficking. Now, when she first called me, she asked if I could also mentor the girls and share my story. And I was a little intimidated by that because I don't typically publicly share the details of my story, but I felt like I really needed to here. And so we decided to take on this project, not knowing what it would entail. And then we eventually learned that it would be a 45-acre development project. So we are actually doing this one 100% pro bono. So we're developing and designing all 45 acres at no cost. And again, just taking a leap of faith and using our time wisely. So we are designing this over a period of time. This will house up to 150 teen girls rescued from sex trafficking. There is currently in the US nowhere for teen girls to go for more than 2 months. This program houses them until they're the age of 18 and sometimes until they're the age of 21. When I started working with them, we started doing our Hope in the Box with them too. And now every year I make sure when the girls arrive, they have the necessities. And every year we do like really massive Christmas boxes for them, which is really fun. But what was even more exciting was that because I've created this environment where I have the freedom to give back, I was able to fly and actually go through a whole weekend and mentor the girls and share my story. And a lot of girls that end up in sex trafficking are often trafficked by their own family, and they're often raped by a family member. And I won't go into detail about why my story is similar, but I was able to share my story and show them that even through extreme trauma, you could be successful if you lean on others, have the right community behind you, and really take advantage of the resources that are out there. They all thought it was pretty awesome that I had my own company and I could relate to them. And I had never been in a situation where I felt like I could inspire someone. And that is really what got me to want to do this more, to really tell my story more and show others that it doesn't matter where you came from, it doesn't matter what your nationality is. It's really about the work that you put into your future, you know? And I'm standing here, we've survived COVID and president changes and all kinds of things that have made our company really struggle. I think the first few years we didn't pay ourselves very often, and paying the rent and buying food was really hard. It's not like I started the firm and was instantly a millionaire, and I'm still not. I'm not the most paid in my office by any means, but I know that every year we're building, and as I'm patient, we do this strategically, I could take on more projects like this, because that's my goal. I want to have the freedom to go mentor these girls. I want to have the freedom to inspire them and show them that, you know, they could rise above their circumstances. And while I've not been through exactly what they've been through, I know that when you go through trauma like that, you do need a community behind you. You need people to show you that you can make it out. And this project in particular is launching this year, and we're working on a fundraiser for it. So I'm just really thrilled and just wanted to share this with you because this was really my dream. It was to take the things that I had learned and the experiences that I had and design this for them. And I bring this up because the original architect that started this project not only charged, but he didn't take into account the sensitivity of being a trafficked victim. And he kept putting their dorms up front on the street side. He put their gym up front on the street side. And being a victim of rape, you know, you fear the attackers and you fear things. And I was able to go in and design it in a way that made them feel safe. And I think that's something that I appreciated, is that I can connect with them, understand what they would need, and not charge. And they needed someone who had that skill. And so that's just something that I just feel really blessed about, and then the ability to mentor them. But I just wanted to share all that, again, not because I want you all to look at me and think like, okay, you know, I don't know, you know, about her story or anything like that. I just share all this because your dreams are possible. You guys are at like the very forefront, you know, and this industry is not what it used to be. I think one of the things we struggle with now is the industry doesn't pay more than it did when I joined. I've now been working for 22 years and we still get paid the same. Our fees aren't more. Ground up maybe, but our interiors isn't changing. And it's because technology is growing. So they expect things faster and faster. And they think because technology is better, why would I pay you more when you can do it in less time? And so what's happening right now is we're experiencing a really top-heavy industry and a lot of young individuals coming in wanting the same amount as maybe someone more senior. And so a lot of firms would rather hire someone with 20 years of experience than someone with no experience, because if you want the same amount as someone with 20 years experience, you know, you're going to lean more towards someone that's going to relieve you rather than you're going to teach. And I say all this because you all have an opportunity to take advantage of technology that us that are more senior don't know about. So if you come in with something unique and you're bringing something to the table that maybe we haven't mastered, that's how you're going to get that job ahead of somebody else. You know, this artificial intelligence, we don't have time to master it, you know, we don't understand it. You can render faster, you can do your drawings faster. So I would take advantage of the things that you're able to learn now and bring to the table something that makes you unique and different from everyone else that's applying. Building the relationships, things like that, those are all really going to help you guys secure a job when you get out of here. So questions? Sorry.